Tonight, we turn the page on a case that once chilled the nation, only to find a new chapter unfolding in the spotlight of social media. The mystery of Gypsy Rose Blanchard has returned, but not in the way many expected. Clue question: could her release be the beginning or the end? In June of 2015, authorities discovered Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard stabbed to death in her Missouri home. Her daughter, Gypsy Rose, long believed to be gravely ill, had vanished. The truth that unraveled stunned the country and raised troubling questions about deception, control, and survival. The home was quiet, too quiet. Neighbors hadn't seen Dee Dee or Gypsy in days. Then, a chilling Facebook post appeared on Dee Dee's joint account. "That botch is dead." Police were called immediately. When officers entered the small pink house in Springfield, Missouri, they were met with an eerie stillness. The air was thick with decay. The television buzzed quietly in the background. In the bedroom, Dee Dee lay face down, her body riddled with stab wounds. But there was something else missing from the scene. Gypsy. Her wheelchair was still in the house, along with her feeding tubes, her medications, all the things that had defined her life. Authorities feared the worst: a sick and vulnerable girl, possibly kidnapped. Amber Alerts were issued. The nation watched in horror as the mystery deepened. Within days, the shocking truth emerged. Gypsy wasn't kidnapped. She was found safe, walking, and with a boyfriend she had met online. The years of illnesses, allegedly fabricated. The perfect mother-daughter bond, a carefully constructed illusion. The public went from mourning to confusion to outrage. And the trial that followed exposed a disturbing world of abuse, manipulation, and murder. Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard was known by many in her Springfield neighborhood as a devoted single mother. She often spoke of her daughter Gypsy's rare illnesses: leukemia, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, and even a cognitive disorder. Always by Gypsy's side, Dee Dee was rarely seen without her daughter in a wheelchair, her head bald from alleged chemotherapy. They'd moved from Louisiana to Missouri after Hurricane Katrina, settling into a modest home built by Habitat for Humanity. Local charities donated generously. Dee Dee and Gypsy received trips to Disney World, tickets to Miranda Lambert concerts, and free medical care. But behind that nurturing image, Dee Dee carried secrets. According to reports, family members from Louisiana claimed Dee Dee had a history of controlling behavior and had even faced suspicion for alleged credit fraud. When asked about Gypsy's conditions, Dee Dee reportedly deflected or refused to share medical records. She claimed to be a full-time caregiver, but medical professionals later stated they had difficulty confirming many of Gypsy's diagnoses. As the truth began to unfold, Dee Dee's portrayal as a selfless mother unraveled. What was seen as love now appeared as manipulation, allegedly driven by a psychological condition known as Munchausen syndrome by proxy, where a caregiver fabricates or induces illness in another, often to gain sympathy or control. Her death shocked neighbors, but revelations afterward left many questioning who the real victim was. Gypsy Rose Blanchard, born in 1991, was believed to be terminally ill for most of her life. She used a wheelchair, had a feeding tube, and was said to have the mental capacity of a child. But all of this was a lie. According to legal testimony and medical evaluations, Gypsy had no major physical illnesses. She could walk, eat regular food, and had even finished school, beyond the level Dee Dee claimed. She later told investigators that she went along with the story out of fear and dependence. In 2015, authorities discovered Gypsy in Wisconsin, hiding with Nicholas Godejohn, a man she had met online. Godejohn, described by his attorneys as socially isolated and struggling with developmental issues, had traveled to Missouri after allegedly planning Dee Dee's murder with Gypsy over months of secret communication. During interrogations, Gypsy claimed she asked Godejohn to kill her mother as her only way out. Godejohn confessed, in graphic detail, to stabbing Dee Dee multiple times while Gypsy hid in the bathroom. Law enforcement stated that text messages between the two detailed the plan. They discussed weapons, timing, and even how to dispose of evidence, while Gypsy was charged with second-degree murder. She accepted a plea deal and served 10 years. Godejohn was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Their case sparked nationwide debate. Was it a murder or an escape? The crime began in silence. On the night of June 14th, 2015, as the neighborhood settled into stillness, Nicholas Godejohn arrived at the Blanchard residence. He had taken a Greyhound bus from Wisconsin, carrying with him a large hunting knife, gloves, and a change of clothes. Dee Dee was in bed. The home, dark and quiet, bore no signs of alarm. According to court records, Gypsy quietly unlocked the door and handed Godejohn the knife. She then retreated to the bathroom, covering her ears, as she later testified. What happened next was brutal. Godejohn crept into the bedroom and stood over Dee Dee as she slept. He stabbed her 17 times in the back while she lay on the mattress. She allegedly never woke up, not until the pain hit. According to police reports, blood was found spattered across the sheets, walls, and furniture. The scene was chaotic, yet methodical. The body was left on the bed for nearly 24 hours while Gypsy and Godejohn fled the state. After the attack, they reportedly took Dee Dee's cash, about $400, and mailed the murder weapon back to Godejohn's home, allegedly as a way to distance themselves from the crime scene. The pair then checked into a motel. Surveillance footage showed them holding hands, buying snacks, and engaging in sexual activity, according to prosecutors. They remained in hiding for several days, during which Gypsy posted 2 now infamous Facebook updates. The first, "That butch is dead." The second, "I fing slashed that fat pig and raped her sweet innocent daughter. Her scream was so fing loud lol." Police traced the IP address to Wisconsin. Soon after, they were arrested. When officers entered the Wisconsin home, they found Gypsy standing. No wheelchair, no oxygen tank, no feeding tube. The illusion had shattered. During the investigation, it was revealed that Gypsy had secretly researched how to fake her death, how to disappear, and how to find someone willing to kill. In an interrogation video, Gypsy described her mother's control in chilling detail. She wasn't allowed to speak alone to doctors. She was fed crushed pills. She was restrained at night with bells on the door. Despite the horror of the crime, some viewed it as a desperate act of freedom, but the court saw it differently. She was complicit, not just a bystander. Her plea bargain would reflect that gray area, a sentence of 10 years, without parole until 85% completion. For Godejohn, there was no such deal. The murder of Dee Dee Blanchard wasn't just a case of violence. It was the climax of a life built on deception. A daughter imprisoned not by walls, but by a mother's control. And once that control snapped, the consequences were irreversible. The investigation into Dee Dee Blanchard's death began with a sense of urgency and confusion. Local authorities initially believed Gypsy had been abducted, possibly by someone dangerous, given her alleged medical fragility. After the disturbing Facebook posts, detectives obtained a search warrant to access IP address records. That led them to Big Bend, Wisconsin. Inside the Godejohn residence, law enforcement found both Gypsy and Nicholas. Authorities described them as cooperative, but emotionally distant. Neither attempted to flee, and both reportedly confessed within hours. Back in Missouri, police searched the home with forensic teams. Blood evidence was consistent with a close quarters attack, and investigators recovered multiple knives, gloves, and electronic devices used for communication. But the real breakthrough came from digital evidence, dozens of texts, private Facebook messages, and search histories. This wasn't a random act. It was a calculated plan, and the evidence told the full story. Though the crime scene offered clear indicators of violence, the case posed unique forensic challenges. First, Gypsy's long history of alleged illness made initial medical evaluation complex. Doctors had to separate fact from fiction, analyzing her physical health to determine if she had ever been sick at all. Second, while blood and fingerprints tied Godejohn to the murder, the prosecution had to prove premeditation. That rested largely on digital forensics. Technicians recovered deleted conversations, planning notes, and even Amazon purchases tied to the crime. One obstacle? The time delay between the murder and body discovery. Decomposition had already begun, complicating exact time of death analysis. Further complicating matters was the psychological aspect. Evaluators had to determine Gypsy's mental state, her sense of agency, and her role as both alleged victim and suspect. Forensic psychologists later described the case as one of the most complex they had encountered. The public reaction to the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case was one of disbelief. Neighbors who once donated to the family felt betrayed. Some mourned Dee Dee, still seeing her as a dedicated mother. Others viewed Gypsy as a victim of extreme abuse, pushed to the edge. Communities nationwide debated the boundaries of guilt and survival. Was Gypsy a murderer or a prisoner? Support groups for abuse survivors spoke out, while some critics labeled the act as premeditated and cold. The moral line blurred, and sympathy shifted back and forth. This wasn't just a crime story. It was a national reckoning on trust, illness, and truth. From courtrooms to cable news, the case captivated the nation. Headlines dubbed Gypsy, the girl in the wheelchair who could walk, and the daughter who snapped. News outlets raced to interview former doctors, neighbors, and legal experts. Documentaries and dramatizations followed. HBO's Mommy Dead and Dearest and Hulu's The Act reintroduced the story to global audiences. Some reports highlighted systemic failures. Doctors who missed red flags. Social workers who didn't dig deeper. Others focused on the horror and the betrayal. The media turned Gypsy into both a cautionary tale and a symbol of hidden abuse. At first, law enforcement considered several theories. Had Gypsy been abducted by a stranger? Was Dee Dee targeted for financial reasons? Was it a robbery gone wrong? But those theories collapsed quickly when Gypsy was found walking, and unharmed. The focus turned sharply to her online relationship with Nicholas Godejohn. Godejohn was not previously known to police. He had no criminal record, no known ties to Missouri. But his digital trail revealed months of conversations with Gypsy, filled with romantic fantasies and increasingly violent plans. According to reports, Gypsy had created multiple fake Facebook accounts to communicate with him, including one where she pretended to be a damsel in distress in need of rescue. Investigators concluded that Gypsy had orchestrated the plan, and Godejohn had followed through with the violence. The case revealed the danger of unchecked digital relationships and how they can spiral from fantasy to fatal. The courtroom was silent as Gypsy entered with her attorney. She looked markedly different. No wheelchair, no feeding tube, no visible signs of illness. In 2016, Gypsy accepted a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and received a 10-year sentence. She would be eligible for parole after serving 85%. Nicholas Godejohn's trial was far more contentious. His defense argued diminished mental capacity and claimed Gypsy manipulated him. Prosecutors presented text messages, planning documents, and surveillance video to prove premeditation. In 2018, the jury found Godejohn guilty of first-degree murder and armed criminal action. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Both verdicts sparked debate. Was justice served, or did the courts fail to account for a life of psychological captivity? No appeals have reversed the sentences, but the public conversation is far from over. Despite the verdicts, many questions still linger. Did any doctors ever suspect Dee Dee of fabricating Gypsy's illnesses and fail to report it? Could authorities have intervened earlier and prevented the murder? And how much of the plan was truly Gypsy's idea versus Nicholas Godejohn's violent impulse? Some records remain sealed, and Gypsy herself has offered conflicting accounts in interviews, even after serving nearly a decade behind bars. The full truth of what happened inside that pastel home in Springfield may never be known. The shadows of this case stretch far beyond the courtroom, leaving behind echoes of trauma and justice unanswered. Since her release in late 2023, Gypsy Rose Blanchard has re-entered public life. She joined TikTok, amassed millions of followers, and began openly discussing her past. Her transformation from recluse to influencer has reignited public interest and controversy. In communities nationwide, the case has changed how professionals screen for medical child abuse. Laws in some states have been re-examined. Hospitals, too, have adopted stricter protocols when dealing with long-term care claims. And for victims of psychological manipulation, Gypsy's story has become both a warning and a complicated form of inspiration. Her freedom is no longer fictional, but its price remains unforgettable. What are your thoughts on the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case? Could a different turn of events have changed everything? Let us know in the comments below, and stay tuned for more stories that blur the line between crime and consequence. As always, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe.